Disclaimer: the following video contains an organized and objectified remix music tier list from the Super Smash Bros. Series. It contains provoking thoughts and concerns from each remix in the games, all coming from this one random guy on the internet. Music is subjective, so not everyone's thoughts and lists might match with myself and others, so please take this into consideration. There will be anger, rage, and a tiny hint of salt, so watch at your own risk. If you do enjoy this video, however, go ahead and give it a like and share it amongst your peers. And why not go ahead and comment on why my tier list is so bad and why my choices were not to your liking. I would love to see what you'd have to say after watching this video. All things considered, I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in on what I have to say in this video. Now, get comfortable and grab some headphones. Let's get right to it and enjoy the sounds of the remixes of the Super Smash Bros. Series. Enjoy! Welcome back to the shit show, everybody. Starting off this section of the tier list, we have an honestly pretty epic remix to go through. Well, it does start off pretty epic, but then it gets pretty rough pretty quickly. Lots of pretties here. Well, anyways, we have the title theme for the NES game, The Legend of Zelda. Originally, this theme is played on the title screen, but this remix also has a second part where Link traverses through the many dungeons that the game has to offer, making it a two-part medley of sorts. Instruments for this remix is through a live orchestra with heavy emphasis on its choir. Oh goddamn, I do love this choir a lot. Especially at the beginning where it sounds like they are hyping you up for a grand adventure to unfold. When we get to the second part of the remix, however, is when things take a huge plunder for me. The dungeon theme is only played through the viola and organ instruments, which can be a good atmospheric choice, but to me it feels kinda yucky, that I just can't really stand it when it comes to this section of the remix. The beginning of the remix is super great, but that second section with the organ does not make up for it. I would assume it makes sense since the dungeon theme would sound really dank and foreboding, like you're in an actual dungeon, but I just don't quite like it when played here. I might be in the wrong here and get some hate, but that's how I really feel, and I should really put this remix up a little bit higher. But that second part just doesn't hit the right strides, and I'm settling this remix here on my tier list. Already off to a good start today, huh? Also, the remix itself is somewhat tame, and the transition from dungeon theme to the beginning title theme could have been a lot better. But, you know, that harp solo piece from the transition to the god-awful organ is actually not that bad. Alright, let's move on before I start a raging war in the comments. Finally coming back to another Donkey Kong remix. We haven't seen this series in a while, but that's just because DK remixes are actually really great in Smash. Just not the 6 alterations of the jungle theme, which we've come across our 4th iteration of the tier list already, this one being made from Melee. Just like the previous versions of the original track, you can hear it when playing at the jungle hijinks level from the Super NES game Donkey Kong Country. Much like its Brawl remix counterpart I talked about in an earlier time on my tier list, this has a really great ambience of making you feel like you're roaming around in an actual jungle, just like in the Donkey Kong games. The instruments played in this remix play a unique jazzy theme of DK Island Swing, with brass instruments, percussion instruments like the bongos and bass drum. We also got a bass guitar in there and even a synthesized piano going along with the first section of the remix, which gives off that DK style very well. Plus, it's a bit faster than the original track to boot. Then we come to the second section of the remix, which has a much slower pace, with bongo drums and other percussion instruments in the background, with a couple of woodwind instruments playing that melody of the song, and also got animal noises in that background too, giving that tribal-esque atmosphere of being in a jungle, before playing back to the jazzy loop of the remix. This is a super cool and ambient piece here. I never really enjoyed this as a kid since I thought it was weak as hell, but I much prefer listening to this remix now from a more mature palette in my older years. If I even have such a thing as a mature palette. Well, I guess you could still think I say that this remix is still weak, given the fairly low placement that I gave it on the tier list. Which is true in a way. The jazzy first part is nice and upbeat, but the very slow and melodramatic second part really sells it on that whole jungle aesthetic. Not as fitting for a competitive game, which Smash can rightfully be, so obviously I'll drop this track here. But I really do super appreciate the track that makes you feel something more than just listening to music, like Shogo Sakai did with this jungle level theme. There aren't that many Smash remixes that make you feel like you're in a different place and universe most of the time, and I'll humbly respect Sakai for making this masterpiece of a remix. It's just not, well, not made for playing in Smash. It's more for listening when you're working or studying type of music instead, which can be good in its own right. Damn, I never had the same remix arranger show up 3 times in a row for this. That's a new record for sure. Granted, this was not intentional in the slightest. Shogo Sakai is a super solid video game composer, like I have previously mentioned. I just found it pretty funny how 3 of these remixes just happened to be right next to each other, without even knowing until now. Anyways, this is a compilation of 2 songs that appeared from the 1983 arcade classic, Mario Bros. You first hear the level start jingle when Mario or Luigi gets ready to play the game, and then transitions to the title theme, which plays for most of the duration of the remix, then cuts back to another version of the level start jingle. Yeah, this start jingle thing plays twice in this remix, with only violins on its second showing before looping back to the title theme. If you couldn't already tell, and really how could you not, the level start theme is an excerpt of the Ein kleine Nachtmusik from Mozart, and it is true in the original arcade game as well. Kinda neat to have a little reference like that here. Besides the ending violin's level start theme, the whole remix mostly plays in an electric keyboard for the main melody, and chiptune samples added in from the original game to add effect. An electric and bass guitar as well as a drum set can be heard in the background too. In my opinion, this is quite the lively and fun little remix we have here, much like the opening theme from Donkey Kong I went over in a previous video. The violin's ending part is, it's something. But you can't be too mad when returning to classic Renaissance excerpts for like 5 seconds, so I won't be too harsh on it. What I will be harsh on, however, is the length. This remix clocks in at about 56 seconds. I guess I also lied where we won't see another short remix on the tier list, and this one happened to pop out of nowhere for me. Oops. I'm definitely not perfect and can make mistakes sometimes with my scripts and ranking process, alright? This remix is short and sweet, but it might get tiresome really fast for some. I would prefer the Smash remixes to be at least over a minute and 30 seconds to not be so overbearing and annoying to listen to. But still, this is a pretty fun remix. Just a bit on the short side, so I guess I'll slide it into rank 298 on the tier list. We're finally out of the Shogo Sakai minefield, but bringing it back to another Star Fox remix though. This is another compilation of two themes from the Nintendo 64 game Star Fox 64. The first being Star Wolf's theme, and this plays when Team Star Wolf enters in an area on many of the missions throughout the game, and you have to fight him off to progress through the game. And the second song plays when you're playing the level Sector Z, as it is stated in the title. A live orchestra is presented for its instrumentation as what you can expect from Star Fox Smash remixes, so no surprise there. The tempo is also a bit faster from the original songs as well, as being upbeat all throughout with an electronic bass that you can distinctly hear especially in the Sector Z section of this remix. Although, between transitions to the two songs, there is little to no musical difference in tone between them, so what you hear is basically what you're getting. While it is a solid representation of themes, I can't help but feel like it's pretty flat all throughout and not very intimidating to me personally. It's another good orchestra piece, and that's all I can really say about it. Otherwise, it's pretty meh. I don't really have a strong feeling for this one after listening to it over and over. I felt like this is a good rank for it. I maybe should be giving this a much more fitting rank, but I don't have or feel a good impact when listening to this remix from standard listening or even playing in Smash. It should definitely be more threatening since this is a main rival theme for the protagonist. Should have more oomph to it. It's pretty disappointing, but at least it's not terrible. It's just stuck in a never-ending loop of obscurity. Speaking about orchestrated remixes, got another one to talk about here. This is Butter Building from the NES game Kirby's Adventure. While it does feature the stage Butter Building, this is another medley of themes featuring Vegetable Valley and Ice Cream Island as well. So yet another inconsistent title checked off the list. Again. Besides all that, this is a live orchestrated piece as I mentioned before, and it first plays Butter Building, while the second and third themes plays Vegetable Valley and Ice Cream Island respectively, but at a much faster tempo than found in the original game. At the end, it plays a small excerpt of the ending of Butter Building, but then continues to loop Butter Building to the beginning of the remix. Actually, a super neat way to loop back, and this is the only instance ever that a remix has done that specifically for Smash. With all that being said, this is another fun remix to listen to by itself, and while playing the game at times. This isn't like the Brawl version of Butter Building, however, which, we'll get to that in due time, but this is a nice remix all around. The transitions, though, are my biggest gripe, as most other transitions are in the Smash series. The most apparent one is from Butter Building to Vegetable Patch, which is pretty abrupt with the pacing. Overall, it's not bad, but definitely not my favorite Kirby track to listen to, and there are just a lot better ones that I put this remix into the bench for. I'm compelled that I'll be putting this remix in this slot, but if I do happen to make a second iteration of this tier list, one just for music itself, I wouldn't complain if I put this remix a bit higher. But for now, gonna focus on this tier list first. Already have done quite enough irreplaceable damage as it is. Dear Lord, here we go. Here comes another super hot take from yours truly, especially since it's a Yoko-led remix. Gonna bite the bullet now and get on with it. This song is named Vega Stage, which originally came from the fighting game epic that kicked off the genre, Street Fighter II, on the arcade and Super NES. This theme plays when the player is facing off the character Vega in the single-player arcade mode, as well as picking the stage Fighting Barroom in a multiplayer match. For the original game, this theme is salsa or flamenco inspired, since Vega is a Spaniard from Spain, and Street Fighter is known to have nationality-inspired music to its diverse cast of characters. But instead of a MIDI, the Smash remix uses actual instruments, which has a beautiful piano solo to the start of the remix, which was actually done by Yoko herself, and then kicks off with the actual song with a violin solo playing the main melody, followed by an acoustic guitar, drum kit, and bass guitar as the main background for the remix. The violin and piano then come together to play the melody at the end of the piece, then loops back to the start. Also, forgot to mention that Yoko was the original composer for Street Fighter II, so she returns to arrange this remix. Just an FYI for those who actually don't read my informational descriptions at the start. Well, enough about information. It's time to talk about why I'm butchering this remix so low on my tier list. Well, first off, I like that it's very Spaniard-inspired. Glad that Yoko took that route for the remix just like how she made it from the original game from way back when. And the remix is really upbeat too. Makes it feel like you're in a fight with a bull or in a bar, and it's not that bad of a song to fight to when playing in Smash. It is a gorgeous piece of music, I am certain of that. But I honestly would like more to it. It feels like it's just missing a lot and I can't put my finger on it. The simplistic design here is nice enough, and I'm pretty sure many really like the simplicity of the remix, and I have no problems if anyone wants to put this remix as one of their favorites. But ever since I heard this remix, I just think something is just left out, and it needs some more pizzazz to strengthen it. I'm probably just acting like a huge hater. Don't know why I couldn't really explain how it's not that amazing to me. It's just, some things just can't really be explained sometimes. I am my very own mystery. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'll be setting this remix here, because I just think that the other remixes are better than this one. Hate me all you want, but that's just how things are going to be this go around. Yet another extreme take that y'all are gonna dogpile my ass for. A bit sad on this one, however. Well, I'm not sad that I'm putting this remix somewhat low because it's a Kirby song. I'm sad that I'm putting two of the GOAT's remixes right next to each other on the tier list. But yeah, here we are. And this is another remix from the GameCube title Kirby Air Ride. This time for the actual City Trial Mode theme, which plays when there are no events in the game currently happening. The original song was played through a MIDI, but the remix is played through a live orchestra this time around, with a progressive rock style with electric guitars and a drum set. The unique part about this remix is that the tempo is actually slightly slower than the original track. But like I said before when talking about the legendary Air Ride Machine remix for Smash, I don't have any nostalgia to hide behind this remix, so this is based on pure speculation and how much I like to listen to this remix. And just like with the few other remixes I discussed, this one just feels a bit flat as well. I listened to this remix and the original for around 15 minutes each, and I just don't get hyped up when listening to either the remix or original. So this is going to be another subjective take. The presentation, however, is amazing, for Iwadare standards of course, even if the tempo is a bit slower. The instruments presented in a fashion for this piece go hand in hand really well. It's a lively but serious remix, so I have no problem while playing this piece in a game of Smash, but even if I'm playing this piece of music, I can't really get in a groove of fighting when listening to it personally. I just can't really bring myself to like it fully. I expect people who are fans of this classic Kirby game will obviously put it much higher than me. I'll just have to accept that. Okay, gonna go way off topic here, but it's kind of a shame that this remix was made in Ultimate, while the previous Smash title, Smash 4, had similar game modes that were made from City Trial's core gameplay. Smash Run and Smash Tour. It would have been really cool to hear this remix played over those game modes, and it's super unfortunate that it never came to pass, and Ultimate didn't get a similar party mode type of setting with unique gameplay. Still don't get why they didn't put Smash Run into Ultimate. That would have been amazing. Next up is a funny little remix that I can't bring myself not to hate with all my heart. We have Humoresque of a Little Dog that debuted in the NES game Earthbound Beginnings, but this track also appeared in the Super NES game Earthbound as well. This song plays when Nintendo enters a convenience store across the game to purchase items and or save the game. The remix to the song has a very similar approach and style to how it plays in their original games. It uses clear instrumentation from a banjo, fiddle, acoustic guitar, kazoo, a tuba, and also various percussion instruments to really set a tone of a southern North American country feel. Like when you're at a rodeo or something. At least I hope that's what it feels like. I mean, I don't know, I'm not in that part of the country, I'm from the Midwest. Shit, maybe I shouldn't have said that. What's pretty cool about this track is that it starts off at a slower tempo that plays similar to the original games, and then kicks it up to 10 with a much faster tempo, and then once it finishes, goes back to the original slower tempo from the original games, looping it back around to the start. I actually like this dynamic a lot. It's not that it's a generational gap of remixes where it plays the original song, I just think it's cool that it goes from the original tempo to the remix tempo, back to the original, so on and so forth. Even though I do think that the slower pace is the drawback here from making the remix into a masterpiece, it's still super fun and catchy that you can't help but smile. Although, it is a bit nonsensical for a fight song in Smash. How the hell was a song from a store that made the remix cut in the Mother series and not a battle song? I don't understand it sometimes, man. Well, thank God that this remix is actually really good. I originally was going to actually have it a bit lower, but decided to move it up once I gave it a good listen, and really enjoyed it a lot. It's another short and sweet track, however, under that minute and 30 mark, so it could get tiresome for a lot of people, and I wouldn't blame you if that was the turnoff. This remix is also another subjective pick, but it is super upbeat and wacky, and just sometimes, those are the really good remixes that you can't help but like. Oh yeah, we finally come to our final remix that was cut from the Ultimate track lineup of remixes. But this one has some history behind it, which I will get to soon. For now, this theme is the Battle Wild Pokemon fight song played in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl on the DS. The title is pretty self-explanatory for where you hear the original theme when you come across a wild Pokemon in the game. Instrumentation-wise, this remix mostly comprises a synth for the main melody with other supporting sounds. A bass guitar and electronic drum set are used as well, and provides a slight tempo increase compared to the original. Okay, now here comes a brief history lesson. Hope you guys can follow along on what I have to say. This remix has only appeared in Smash 4, and it originally replaced a previous Brawl version of the same title, which was composed by Yuka Sugiyoko. My guess is that since Koji Hayama wanted to make a remix for this theme, there couldn't be two versions of the same title in the same game, so the Brawl version had to get cut for the game. But when Ultimate came out, now the Brawl version replaced this Smash 4 version. Quite the conundrum. What's even more stupid is that from all the other cut remix content, this one should have at least made an appearance in Ultimate. You couldn't have just given a Smash 4 at the title end? The same thing could have also been said with the Brawl remix too, like the other remix titles have already done. It's a shame, but that's just how it is. Maybe another reason why this remix hasn't appeared in Ultimate is due to the fact that Koji Hayama didn't make an arranged remix for Ultimate, so a bit of a bummer at that juncture. I do like his other remixes that he provided for Smash though, which we will go over in the future. This is actually his first one that I brought to the tier list, just an FYI. Now here's the biggest question of them all: why did I put this remix in this spot on the tier list since it was cut from the other lineup of music tracks? Well, for starters, I did actually forget its existence until working on this project. Since this was cut for Ultimate, I never would have guessed that there was a second Battle Wild Pokemon song for Generation 4 in Smash, so I was quite shocked when doing research for this project. And even when I had a Wii U at the time, I don't anymore because that console and Smash 4 are hot garbage by the way, but besides the point, I think I remember not putting this remix on a high setting for my Music playlist because I thought it wasn't that good and a bit weird at the time. I think my opinions might have turned from a 180 however. I think this remix is actually pretty decent now. It more closely follows the original theme from the DS, more so than the Brawl remix due to the synth being incorporated here, and has a unique twist giving it a bit of an edge to fight in a way. Don't think I really appreciated this as much as I did back in college. I'm still gonna put this remix here since I never had enough time with it, and since it's not in Smash Ultimate, unless you mod your Switch, you'll never hear the remix in-game, and that's a bummer to me since I would like to listen to it in action. If this remix was put into Ultimate, I do believe you would have seen this remix much higher on the tier list for sure. Also, if you didn't hear it already, at the end of the remix before the loop, Hayama put these "hey" sounds. He does that throughout all of his other Smash remixes that he produced as well. Don't really hate it, but like, what is the point of that sound quip? Must be some kind of inside joke or something. Dude must be the biggest weirdo, being in the nicest way possible. It provides a different take for music for Smash Bros. In a way, which is a nice change of pace to listen to, but it sure is pretty damn weird. Alright, moving along from that 10-page essay presentation, now we have a fun and interesting remix to go over. This is the Mii Plaza, which originates from the Nintendo Wii software, the Mii Channel, and this theme plays when a person can create their very own personal Mii and observe other Miis through the plaza. The thing about this remix, however, is that it plays the same melody and tune from the previous remix I already mentioned, Mii Channel. You know, the one that I put nearly at the bottom of my tier list? Well, instead of it being bland and boring, this remix is very flaunty and has a unique charm to it. It's mostly a brass-focused salsa-esque style of remix with a drum set, bongos, a brief piano section, and a set of string instruments as the background for the remix, as well as being a part of the melody when the brass instruments are not playing. It sets itself apart from the other remixes on this tier list for being quite unique with what it differs from the source material, going from a minimalistic relaxing piece to something that you can be in the mood for to do a little dance with. The offering here is great, but on the grand scale of things for fighting, I don't really picture it to be that great of a song to fight to in Smash, but I don't hate it at all. It has a uniqueness to it that you can't seem to hate. I think it feels right putting this remix here. On to the next remix of the tier list, we're at Turbo Jet, which comes from the Nintendo 3DS launch game, Pilot Wings Resort. This theme plays when the player goes through the various missions with the turbojet aircraft. Going from the original game's music, it sorta had a jungly type of vibe to it. I don't know how else I can explain it other than that. Just go on YouTube and take a listen for yourself when you get a chance, you'll understand what I mean. This Smash remix, however, puts it in a more bombastic scale and made it into a big band style with a focus on brass instruments and a groovy electric guitar solo in the middle section. String instruments, a drum set, piano, and various other percussion instruments accompany the main music too. This remix also includes 2 other songs as well. The start to the remix starts off to the opening section for the Turbojet mode when you're about to take off, then it goes to the melody for Turbojet in the second section of the remix. By the end, it goes with a little excerpt of Light playing to top it off, then loops it back to Turbojet's section, with the brass at the beginning. Asuka Ito also returns to arrange this remix after originally composing the game, just like with Pedal Glider. And speaking about that Pedal Glider remix from my first video, this remix definitely sounds like you're flying through the air on the plane, given that it's from Pilot Wings. I think it even goes well on the Smash stage with the same name in that regard. Go figure. Can't really say the same with the other stages that can use this remix for its background, however. The remix is great, way better of a fight song to play than Pedal Glider, but unfortunately, I still rather listen to the other remixes in Smash. The credit that goes really high here is the amazing score that Asuka Ito managed to pull off with this remix. The approach from the original jungle vibe to the orchestrated remix is such a good call and a great piece to listen to by itself. Putting this remix here on this rank is a good fit in my opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few other people would rank this remix a bit higher than mine. Sheesh, another Shogo Sakai remix already mentioned. Really putting him out there in the limelight, huh? Trust me, you haven't seen, or rather hear, the last of the hot takes yet for today. But first, I'll talk about the Melee remix for Brinstar Deaths. This track can be heard from the original NES game, Metroid, when Samus is exploring the area dubbed Kraid's Lair. In the middle of the remix, when the music transitions, there's a small excerpt of the song when Samus enters a room with a Chozo statue holding a power-up. The instrumentation for this remix is really unique since it uses a synthesizer as well as the original NES music on the music's first part of the remix, holding true from what I like to call the generational gap remixes when I mentioned it in the Underwater theme on my tier list. Then, it moves on to the second loop of the remix with a raised key while adding electronic drums and bass to the mix, making it a more heavier and impactful tone, then looping back to the beginning. This right here is the perfect Metroid remix for its use of atmosphere. Metroid is, in a sense, a horror and suspenseful game genre, and the way Shogo Sakai made this theme play out from what it did in the original NES game just absolutely takes my breath away. I really hated creepy and scary things when I was a kid, and refused to play the Brinstar Deaths Melee stage because of this remix alone. Also not to mention the stage itself being dark and scary, with Kraid in the background being a big creepy monster. It made me piss my pants when I first saw it, and never went back to it for the longest time. Now, with a more mature and older me going back to this stage, I still feel very uneasy, but I can at least enjoy this piece and its atmosphere now. Very appreciative of Shogo Sakai being the granddaddy of cool-ass music. Now I'm gonna tuck into the negatives, and you can probably see it coming. Yeah, this remix really doesn't fit into a fight-centric tone. I mean, the remix does fit Brinstar Deaths and the other Metroid stages for Smash very well. I just don't get a very good I want to kick some ass kind of vibe. More like a, I'm going to hide in the closet to avoid the scary monster. And this is really speaking from a super objective standpoint, and I even hate myself for putting this masterpiece of a remix somewhat low on the tier list, but I promise to be the most objective as to make sure every remix has a great music and fantastic upbeat fighting vibe, and it only passed one out of the two criteria here. I wish I could change my own mind and speak in terms of it being high up on the tier list for atmosphere alone, but nah, it's just not a great song to listen to while playing in Smash. I can very much see people are going to be hating on this placement, so please forgive me for my stupid opinions. Oh man, I'm sorry Mr. Sakai, I truly am, but man, some of the pieces that you put out here just don't really jive with me all that much. At least they aren't near the bottom of the tier list, more so in the middle here. I guess I can say a fun fact since his music is getting mentioned a lot here today. Shoko Sakai actually has the most amount of arranged remixes in the Super Smash Bros. Series, tied with Hirokazu Ando, who was in turn the original composer for the first Smash Bros. So it's not really surprising to see many of his arranged remixes so close together. Okay, now onto this remix being Underworld, and it is from the NES game Kid Icarus. The original theme plays during the earlier moments of the game where Pit needs to ascend from the Underworld to Skyworld. There are also two small excerpts as well, the theme for the Reaper which plays when Pit gets spotted by one, and the game over theme plays in the ending of the remix before looping back to the beginning. For instruments, an orchestral arrangement was made with a focus to brass instruments for the main melody, and a drum set with electric guitar supporting the background for the majority of the song, with an increased tempo from the original. This remix is... it's alright. Back when Brawl came out when I played the Subspace Emissary, this remix was played constantly at the beginning, and I kinda got sick of it as time went on. It's a very iconic theme though, and a lot of people do like it as it is also used in the 3DS sequel Kid Icarus Uprising. You know, it's kinda funny, I don't really like the overworld themes for the Zelda series since it gets constantly overplayed, but the underworld theme for Kid Icarus is the one that gets overplayed here, and not its overworld theme. The yin and yang of overplayed songs. I shouldn't be too harsh on this one though. It is objectively a great remix and it helped the 3DS Kid Icarus game get its footing on the musical front of things. So I will give credit to where it is due, but it's also feeling like the music uses a weird MIDI too, instead of an orchestra, and it feels compressed for some odd reason. I'm not gonna ponder on this for much longer. It is a good remix, I just apparently have the shit opinions here. Just when I couldn't have any other shittier opinions, time to talk about Mogera, which came from the GameCube classic The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. This theme plays when Toon Link fights the boss Mogera. And yep, this theme only plays on this boss fight and this boss fight alone for the entire game. For that reason, I'm guessing that's why it is very iconic in that regard. Instead of a MIDI theme that mostly uses the pan flute for its main melody, the remix uses a live orchestra with brass horns playing the main melody instead, with accompanying strings and percussion instruments with a faster tempo. As akin to the Ultimate Remix fashion, this plays in two loops with a different key signature for its second section before looping back. You know, this isn't really a bad remix at all, it is a pretty good alternative to the original boss theme, but I just really like the original better because of the tone that the original had. This remix's tone doesn't really give out that sense of dread and more of an actual fight that feels very rushed, when the boss fight itself didn't really feel rushed at all. Man, I hope that description makes some fucking sense to one person at least. Also, I can't forget that this remix murdered the most important part of the original track, the chiggas at the beginning of this piece. Bruh, now that is super disrespectful. The original Mulgera theme was actually in Brawl and Smash 4, and just like with Midna's Lament that I talked about in an earlier video, the original got replaced with this Ultimate remix. Now, I'm not going to say that they shouldn't have bothered making this remix to begin with. Unlike with Midna's Lament, this is at least pretty good to play in a game of Smash with. I'm just being a little salty shit that doesn't always get my way. Like most kids in the Smash community. I feel like this is a decent spot to put this remix in, and some people do actually like it a lot apparently, so I'm not too worried about it being somewhere higher on another person's tier list compared to mine. Gonna be talking about another F-Zero remix so soon after Big Blue. In all honesty, I really should have put these two more closer together, but decided not to. This is the third remix of Mute City in the Smash series, and it originally plays on the Super NES game F-Zero in the Mute City tracks of the game. This remix is more of a techno-based song that is pretty faithful to the original source material, with an electric guitar and synth leading the main melody, with a bass guitar and drum set supporting it in the background. And yeah, this remix is the epitome of mid. Unlike the two godlike sensations of past Mute City remixes we got from the previous Smash games, this remix was the start of, since there have been no new F-Zero games for over 15 years at this point, we're gonna try and recreate past F-Zero Super NES tracks, thing that they tried to do. I mean, they did a good job of recreating nostalgia, but I grew up with the heavy metal or hard rock type of music that F-Zero had been back with X and GX. And returning to this weird, wannabe old school techno music that F-Zero originated from is just not that great here. Mute City will, of course, be the awesome track that it will always be and that will never change, but having 3 of them for remixes in Smash, one of them will have to take the fall for the least favorable one, and the Smash 4 remix will have to be that this time around. Also considering that this remix is based on nostalgia, it makes total sense that this remix was made for the stage Super NES Mute City for the 3DS version of Smash 4, so this remix completes the stage, which is fair in all respects. Been a while since we came across a Castlevania remix. All of the music for the series pretty much slaps, so that's to be expected. The song is Vampire Killer, which first appeared in the NES original Castlevania, and has made recurring appearances in later games of the series, being that this plays on the very first level of the game, when Simon Belmont storms the foyer of Dracula's castle. Very iconic piece of music here. This remix mostly uses a heavy metal approach like most Castlevania remix music, but also has classical sounding instruments, such as a piano, harp, and a synth, going along with parts of the melody when the electric guitar is absent, making it a cool aspect which strays away from being all heavy metal focused. Now, I like to talk about a bit of discrepancies from this Ultimate remix and the Vampire Killer remix that was made for the Wii title Castlevania Judgment, which is actually also in Smash Ultimate. While these are similarities between the two songs being pretty much having a heavy metal approach with the same tempo, they are actually two different musical remixes that just sound very much alike. I can assure you that they are a bit different from one another, such as using different instruments in some parts and having different openings as well. just wanted to give some clarification for their differences. Now with all that information aside, I actually prefer the Castlevania Judgment version more than this Ultimate Remix, funnily enough. It has a better use of instruments such as an organ and a choir, which I think goes way harder than this Ultimate Remix. The Ultimate Remix here is kinda lackluster in that regard, not having any of those effects to use, which dampens the experience for me. It's still a really solid remix, but if given by choice, I'd rather listen to the other one instead. But if the Ultimate Remix pops up for a game of Smash instead, I wouldn't complain too much. I honestly would have put this remix a bit higher on the list if the Judgment Remix was somehow not in the game, but that's just how it is, huh? Basically all comes down to preference for this song, but my guess people wouldn't really care that much to begin with since it is still pretty awesome and sounds similar to one another. This is still Vampire Killer in its prime, and nothing can say that otherwise. Feels like I haven't really dived into some wacky, old-school NES games for the tier list in a while, so let's bring out the Smash 4 remix of the Wrecking Crew Medley. This remix is a series of themes from the NES game with the same name, and features almost all the themes for the game. We start off with the game start jingle, then go through the background music A, which plays during gameplay until you beat the stage or lose a life. Then it transitions over to the bonus round theme, followed by the power-up theme when Mario picks up a golden hammer, then the remix loops back around to the background music A theme to loop. Instead of the chiptune music of the old days, the instrumentation for this remix uses a jazzy, big band style with the usual instruments that you would see in a jazz band. A drum set, bass guitar, saxophone, trumpets, and the occasional xylophone and marimba also make an appearance in this medley too. They play mostly in the first background music A part of the song, and then we get to see the bonus round and power-up jingles. That's when we get to see the wacky shenanigans of the synth come into play, and mostly plays those two themes while keeping the same fast tempo throughout the remix. This remix is a pretty hearty one that has a nice and relaxing rhythm to it. It's got some really strong parts like the transitions. This actually might be one of the few remixes that the transitions to different pieces takes in full effect of the remix, and I'll give it a lot of brownie points, since those other transitions from the past remixes are mid as hell or just outright terrible. While I considered this remix to be pretty solid, there is another Wrecking Crew remix that was new in Ultimate that I haven't covered yet, and yeah, you got me, I think that one is just a tad bit better than this. I'll go in depth about the differences later. Well, this remix is technically low, not making it to the halfway point for the tier list, but I think the techno synth and beats don't really do it for me that much in this piece. I do enjoy the jazzy interlude from the beginning, and I see why the synth is there because they want to somewhat recreate the style of the NES game, but I think this rank for this remix is for personal preference, to be honest. I can understand if people would like this medley more as opposed to the medley that was made for Ultimate, and vice versa. But given that I like the Ultimate remix a bit more, it kinda makes sense that I stuffed this Smash 4 remix back here. Coming back to the Pikmin series, we have the world map theme from Pikmin 2 on the GameCube. As the remix title suggests, yes, this theme is from the world map selection of Pikmin 2. What a shocker. Instead of the original song using a MIDI, this remix uses a live orchestra mostly featuring string and percussion instruments as the main melody, which features a pan flute, bagpipes, and the mandolin. The tempo for this song is identical to the original world map theme, but it has a bit more dynamic flair with what you can expect from a fighting game. Or in this case, Smash Bros. If you don't want to depict Smash as a fighting game. The remix also features the leitmotif that the Pikmin music was known for too, so hearing it brings a good vibe for the RTS series. It's a decent remix, but since I'm not the biggest Pikmin fan in the world, I'm going to have to put this one up for rank 283. At least it isn't as annoying to me as the other previous Pikmin remixes before, such as the Pikmin noises and the music being all over the place. This is just a nice and simple remix to listen to, whether it be by itself or while playing in Smash. The flute and bagpipes as the main melody here is pretty neat and does a great job of projecting itself with the rest of the instruments in the background. And yeah, that's it. Pretty short talk for this one, but I'm not sure if anyone who isn't a fan of Pikmin will put this remix very high on their own remix tier list. So yeah, there's that, I guess. Swinging on back to Animal Crossing, next up is Go KK Rider, which first appeared in the original Animal Crossing on the GameCube. Well, Nintendo 64 disk drive over in Japan if you want to be anal about it. This particular song plays only on Saturday nights when the musician KK Slider appears in town to play a wide variety of music with his acoustic guitar. But instead of the guitar and the singing or whistling on how he usually performs, this remix here features a harmonica as its main melody of the first part of the piece, with stringed instruments, brass horns, and a drum set appearing alongside the melody, as well as the usual acoustic guitar of course, and KK Slider singing the vocals in the second part of the remix. This remix is also a stylized theme of the Kamen Rider series, an ongoing show in Japan, so pretty cool that a TV show outside of video games are referenced here, especially at the beginning with the revving of a motorcycle is an inspiration to that idea. I mean, that's what it says on the Smash Wiki. Just going off that information, and I hope it's correct, or I'm going to look like a huge jackass here. Anyways, it's a neat stylized track that's vastly different from any of the other Smash remixes here. Give it more of a western or country aspect to the remix, which is great if you want something different for a change. KK Slider not singing until the second section of the remix is also a good dynamic besides just singing all throughout the remix. Some people don't prefer the Animal Crossing vocals all that well, me included, so given the fact that it only appears in a small portion and the rest were given to the instruments was a smart choice here. The only thing that is lacking here is the jive to play this in a fighting game setting. The theme is very catchy, don't get me wrong, but it is really too lax to be in a fighting game. A very creative track however, but I can't really put it any higher than here. I'm sure many others would like to see this placed higher, and I wouldn't blame you if you'd like that, but you should probably go watch another tier list if you're looking for that higher placement. Let's get back to another creative remix here, and this is probably the most creative remix on the tier list in my opinion. It's the Mario Paint medley. As you can tell from the title, this remix is a series of themes from the Mario Paint game on the Super NES. The remix starts off with the title theme of the game, with the style music choice being a big band and jazzy music selection of brass horns and strings, with a bass guitar and drum set incorporated into the music. Then comes the opening demo 1 for Kung Fu Men, Nat Attack Phase 1, the save and load screen, the Monkey Song, Wait, they seriously have a song for monkeys here? And then the ending off with the Creative Exercise, which features sounds and music from the original Super NES game. This remix is actually super cool to have game sounds that were in the original game to be put in, kinda like a generational gap in a sort of a way to demonstrate how the game actually sounded way back when. I personally never gave Mario Paint a try, and I probably never will because I have no creativity whatsoever, but it is pretty neat to hear those unique quirks with jazz music and game music coming together like this. But putting this remix here in this placement, you can tell it really isn't my favorite. Kind of a weird remix to be playing this while playing in a match of Smash, yeah? A bit too wacky to be taken very seriously, but I do love its creativity, so I'm giving a lot more credit than I'm willing to give to other remixes here on my tier list. I guess you're welcome, Mario Paint fans, whoever you are. Would you look at that? We've come across our first ever vocal mix track for the Smash series. So here, I'll cover both versions of musical and vocal mix remixes as one, so basically I'm covering two remixes with one stone this time around. I'll be playing the vocal mix in the background for these ranking scripts I laid out. First up in these very obscure remixes is the Bath Time theme, found in the Tendog series of games on the DS and 3DS. At the intro of the remix, a small excerpt of the beginning of Walking Your Dog is heard, and then transitions to the Bath Time theme when Watching Your Dog plays in the background. Besides the original piece, which is a very light and relaxing tune, this remix turns the tempo up a notch with adding heavier percussion instruments and a synth to make it more of an upbeat track to make it more enjoyable to fight and smash with. The vocalization for this remix are provided by Ririka, a Japanese vocalist, and she will be present again at a later time. This remix is a bit wacky, but it's honestly not too bad it can be heard while having a good time in Smash with. I don't find it too intrusive, but it's still not the best thing in the world. At least they didn't take the original Bath Time theme and drop that into Smash. Yeah, that would have been a super boring track to play. It's a nice spice up to the original, but I mean, I don't want to catch myself jamming out to a theme that's meant to be watching your virtual dog. It is the only theme of the Tendog series ever used to be remixed in Smash, given that there is a stage for Tendogs called Living Room, and they obviously needed a theme or remix that resided to the series. And there is actually another Bath Time remix as well that I haven't covered yet. Will we see it soon? Who knows, but I of course. This remix is just alright, and the vocalist does a great job making the theme sound more fun at least, but I'd rather listen to another remix from the Other Music section playlist in Smash, even if this theme is playing on the living room stage where it resides from. You really can't win them all, I'm afraid. Yeah, y'all must really think I'm a Kid Icarus hater after this video. But I hope I can get to the point that the remixes for this series really aren't the best at all. Well, here we have the overworld from the original NES game Kid Icarus. This theme can be heard when Pit traverses through the overworld section of the game. Basically, the later half of the game when Pit goes past the underworld section. The instrumentation for this remix is a basic orchestral remix with added acoustic guitars and unique percussion instruments added to the mix. The tempo to this remix is basically the same, or even a tad bit slower to the original counterparts, so this can be seen as a one-to-one recreation of an old theme, just updated with better instrumentation. And you know, I think this is a solid remix. I honestly have no complaints with it. Oh, wait, actually I do. It sounds like a damn compressed MIDI for some reason, especially with the brass horns. It must be my ears giving out at a very young age, or I'm just a bitter old man now. I mean, I guess it might not be compressed, but it just feels like it. It really hinders my listening experience, but I do like the melody to this remix a bit since it's upbeat and lively, and it's a song that's finally not Underworld from Kid Icarus. Something fresh and new. Yeah, as you can blatantly see, I'm not a big fan of overused overworld themes for the Zelda or Mario series. But I find it pretty funny that the title for this song shares the same name for those. Don't get confused for this song from the others, it's confusing enough already with Smash game nomenclature of which remix resides into which video game. But still, it's a fun remix that I can get behind from time to time, but it's not enough to sway me to get the remix up to the halfway mark on my tier list, however. Surprisingly, the next Kid Icarus remix will be the last one to go over. If you're wondering where I put that Kid Icarus remix, only time will tell, and I guess you just have to keep watching. Damn, this is the 6th Shogo Sakai remix that I've covered in this section of the video. If I wasn't already a certified Shogo Sakai music hater, then I will be when I talk about this remix. This is a melee remix for the Ice Climber NES game, and it covers 2 songs of the game. Basically a medley. The first theme to play is actually the bonus stage theme whenever Popo or Nana make it up to the near peak of the mountain to collect vegetables, and reaching the peak to grab the condor. Wow, what were those game developers smoking back in the day? And then the second theme is the regular stage theme where the 2 must make it past enemies to reach the peak of the mountain. The instruments used for this remix is another jazzy-esque style of music with the usual piano, drum set, bass guitar, cello, and a synth being played for the bonus stage of the remix. The second stage usually incorporates a synth and chime bells for its stage theme, with the drum set tagging along to create a jazzy beat of tension. As a kid, I really did like this remix a lot, and I'm happy to see it return after not listening to it back in Smash 4. However, it's just a bit outdated here. Can't believe I'm saying that. Not that it sounds horrible at all, I do love the atmosphere that this remix gets out, especially with the snowy, winter-like waltz that it plays during it all, and the jazzy portion of the bonus stage theme is really solid in its own right. But it's not really the best or anything. There are some slow and droned out parts here, so this remix really isn't a great way to get your fighting game blood boiling. Actually, it might turn below freezing at this point. But this remix really makes me nostalgic in a way, and I don't want to put it super ultra low here, so I decided to put it at rank 277. I think it really fits here in this placement. The Brawl remix on the other hand, well, we won't be seeing that one for a long time actually. Oh man, it's just that good. Coming to the end of this monstrosity of this section of the tier list, we arrived at a Mario Kart remix finally. Unless you want to count the shitty abomination that was pronounced as the worst Smash remix known to man. You know, let's just talk about this one. I don't ever want to think about the one remix that must not be named. So here we have the only Smash remix to feature the original Mario Kart that started it all, Mario Circuit from Super Mario Kart on the Super NES. This original theme plays on all of the Mario Circuit tracks in the game. Yeah, simple enough. The remix also uses a starting grid countdown at the middle too, and also incorporates the original sounds, like the carts revving up and accelerating, which was something I never even heard of until I put in headphones to listen to this remix piece. It really blew my mind away when I first heard it, so really cool implementation of classic sounds for this remix. Gotta hand it to Takahama for that one. Other than that, this remix is composed of electronic music with the synth and electronic drums. I think Takahama wanted to do that to pay homage to the original soundtrack from the game, but who's to say? Although I think it works fairly well in this remix. And you can also hear the piano playing in the main melody if you listen close enough too. I really enjoyed this remix quite a lot actually, but as I said with other remixes that are pretty short that it could potentially be annoying if overhearing the same theme over and over again, this can also be used the same way, since this remix clocks itself under a minute just like with other shorter remixes before it. If the remix wasn't any shorter, I definitely would have put it much higher than I originally have given it here. The electronic vibe it gives out is super cool, and I like it when electronic music of any kind just gives a nice beat and doesn't take itself too seriously. But I mean, if it's not too serious enough for a game Smash, then yeah, I have to make it apparent that I'll put this cool and vibey track here on the tier list. Hey all, 6th video done and on to the 7th for the next time. I think we're about 33% done with the video series, which, holy shit, I still have a lot of work to do, but I have to say that it is a huge milestone for me in the long run, so I can say that I'm a bit happy with my accomplishments so far. For this outro topic for today, since I went over my voice lines from the last video, I think I'll talk about how I created such voice lines in the first place. Well, for starters, I used the program Audacity. It is a free program that helps me create these voiceovers such as the one that you're listening to right now. It has a lot of neat features such as a white background eraser, as well as a de-esser tool which helps me a lot since I have a lot of sibilants. Basically, you won't hear loud pitch S-sounding sounds that would generally make the listening experience uncomfortable, so I slapped that onto my voiceovers to make it more enjoyable. At least I hope it does. I then export all of these voiceovers, all 442 of them, to MP3 files and then use them for my video editing. I guess I'll talk about my editing in the future. But yeah, Audacity is a really great tool, and also free, by the way, if you'd like to do voiceovers, as well as create music files if you want to record music playing onto your computer. I actually think a lot of video game music you hear on YouTube uses Audacity as well, so there's that. Alright, I think that should be that for today. Thanks again for coming by and watching my Trash Hot Takes video. Hope you all can suffer with me as we move on to the future. Have a blessed day, everybody.